Paranormal encounters can come in all sorts of forms and shapes. Most are just a passing observation, some are a chance encounter which are spooky but overall benign. Some can even be strangely humane and heartwarming, and some can be trauma-inducing and damaging in the long term. We want to believe the world be somewhat just and rational, and if we don't cause harms to the others and avoid the misconducts, we should be spared from such a traumatic experience. But unfortunately, sometimes it's just about being in the wrong place at the wrong time to be unwittingly tangled up with malicious souls. Today we are taking a look at allegedly true stories about 3 unlucky people who were deeply affected by damaging paranormal encounters for no fault of their own. As always, handpicked, translated and narrated by your host, Anthony. A story my teacher told us at school. He has a friend, let's call him Cheolsu. Cheolsu is a handsome, easygoing man from a good family and runs a successful business too. But he couldn't get married till he reached his 40. It wasn't that he didn't have women around him. For what he was, he had quite a few girlfriends over the years. But every time when things got serious and the wedding became the logical next step, the girls would break up with him. One day he was introduced to a woman. She had a deep faith, so much so she once wanted to become a nun. Cheolsu was intrigued by her tranquil and innocent character. Soon they fell in love and promised to get married. So Cheolsu took his fiancée to meet his parents in Busan for the first time. While Cheolsu drove, the fiancée fell asleep in the passenger seat, and she got a dream. She found herself facing a house with a big garden. In the garden was a big tree, and she saw a bird sitting on it, an unusually large bird. She got closer to look at it, and only then realized it wasn't a bird, but a naked woman. Fiancée was strangely kept calm. What really drew her was the house, and she looked around to find a way in. And all the while the naked woman followed her round from a distance, pretending to look away whenever the fiancé turned to face her. Then Cheolsu woke her up that they arrived. Fiancé was shocked to see his family home looking exactly like the house she saw in the dream. She sensed it wasn't just any old dream. So she told him about the dream she just had and asked if Cheolsu had anything that he hadn't told her from his past. It seemed triggering some memory to Cheolsu, and he recounted what happened when he was a uni student. He rented a room then, and something was not right there. He'd be constantly plagued with a sense of being watched and hear somebody breathing next to him when he slept. He got almost paranoid and in the end probed the landlord if something had taken place in the room. The story landlord told him was, it used to be occupied by a young woman who worked at a bar. She had a boyfriend, a law school student. She supported him through his study, but he dropped her as soon as he passed the bar exam. Heartbroken, the poor woman killed herself in that room. Cheolsu moved out and found himself a new room, but the sound of breathing continued around him. In the end, he sought a shaman. "Ha! A resentful ghost has found herself a husband, eh?" Shaman said. The ghost would help him with his work and career, but she wouldn't see him getting a wife. Shaman suggested a big ritual, but he could neither afford nor wanted to believe it. Charles's fiancée seemed surprised, but she soon assured him that it would be different this time, as her love for him and her faith in God were both firm. Eventually, the couple got married. Unfortunately, the story doesn't end with a happy ending because the couple was separated by the time my teacher told the story. Has the ghost had her way again? Or could it have been anything else? This happened to me back in 2011. In my last term of university, I was spending my days writing CVs and job applications, as I was on that particular day, until I suddenly realized how hungry I was. I checked in the kitchen cabinet, and damn, there was not a single ramen left. Rain was pouring down outside, but what else could I do but go out to buy something to feed myself? To save pennies, I chose to go to the cheaper supermarket across the stream rather than the convenient store nearby. I looked down the stream as I crossed the bridge. The water was wild with a downpour. Well, at least the rain seemed to have cooled down the summer heat a bit. No, but the air coming out from below the bridge felt almost cold, like an early winter breeze. Very odd, but I just moved on. On the way back from the shop, I was once again crossing the bridge. I suddenly felt it shaking under my feet. Was it an earthquake? Was the bridge collapsing? I hung onto the railing and looked around to see what was going on. Nothing. People were still crossing the bridge, seemingly not noticing anything odd. I shrugged and was about to carry on crossing. Chaki-sok! 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 Somebody was calling my name over and over from underneath the bridge. It was a cracked and creepy voice, too. I looked down, and there, in the middle of the wild water, was a woman in black, smiling at me. Her long hair was a mess and was grey here and there, showing her age. Pale face, uneven brows, hazy eyes, and the green. She looked so odd and creepy that I could not help but staring. Chaki-sok! Chaki-sok! She carried on calling my name. Had it not that she knew what my name was, I would have just walked on. Excuse me, how do you know my name? Have we met before? I said. The woman just nodded her head, keeping the grin on her face. But I don't know you. Now leave me alone. I just thought she was some mad woman and hoped my stern response would put her in her place. I could not help but looking back at her out of the corner of my eyes. She was climbing over the bank in an impossible speed. That's not human, I thought, and started running. I did not slow down until I reached my room and locked up all the doors and windows. I still could not calm myself down. What if that thing knocked on my door? I thought to call up a friend to help myself read a panic, and realized my pocket was empty. Shit! I must have dropped it somewhere during the flight. I turned to my computer and turned on the messenger to ask somebody to try and call my number. But it was the last days of the desktop messengers, and there was only one online. A junior student, let's call him Unsu, who was so notorious for being rude and antisocial that nobody in the department wanted to do anything with him. But I had no other option, so sent him a message. Hey, could I ask you a favor?
What?
I think I dropped my phone somewhere. Could you call my number and see if anybody picks it up?
I could, if you'd buy me a drink later.
Oh, that bastard. Of course, if I get my phone back.
Cool. I'm dialing your number now.
Then I heard a phone ringing right outside the door of my flat. I opened up the door, but there wasn't a sign of a soul. I was still sure the ring was from my phone, as I created the ring myself by patching up my favorite song. I returned to my computer to ask Unsu to ring it one more time, but he was now offline. I couldn't understand what was happening. Was it all real? Was the woman just a mad vagabond, or could she have been really a ghost? As the panic subsided, I felt tired and fell asleep. I woke up with a sensation of my bed shaking. I shut up and saw the woman from earlier standing at the foot of my bed. She was shaking the bed, grinning and excitedly shaking her head.
Chucky-sok! Chucky-sok!
She called out my name with her cracked voice, and every time she did that, my heart skipped a beat. I just screamed. Just then, somebody banged on my door so loud that even the woman stopped shaking my bed.
Hey, open up! Right now!
I recognized the voice being of Unsu's. He was bumping and kicking the door as if to break it down. I heard my neighbors shouting at him to quit it and Unsu swearing back at them. All the while, the woman seemed lost and was roaming around the room like a cockroach looking for a place to hide. Not finding a proper spot, she even crawled up the wall and on the ceiling. I was about to scream again, but the woman put her finger to her mouth to shut me up. I could not dare to dismiss her glaring eyes looking down on me. She then crawled over to the window and gestured to me to open it up. I did with shaking hands, and the woman disappeared like a black cat into the night. Unsu rushed in just then.
Shit, you were tricked by a effing ghost, eh? What you looking? Why, how did I find it out, you wonder?
He explained when he called my number earlier, a woman answered and claimed that she picked my phone and suggested to meet at 7 in the evening on the bridge. So Unsu went out to the bridge, but there was no woman but my phone left on the railing.
Shit, she got me good. Could have caught her this time,
Unsu said. According to him, the woman was a ghost, a famous evil spirit in the area. He assumed the woman should be at my place and was heading towards it, when a truck slipped on the wet road and ran head-on to him. Had he not managed to dodge it, it could have been fatal. He took it as the ghost challenging him and ran all the way to my place in rage.
She must have known who I was, just as I knew who she was as soon as I heard her voice. That bitch, he said.
What are you? A shaman? Exorcist? I said. He just huffed and told me it was none of my business. In any case, he not only found my phone, but also saved my life, so I bought him a drink as I promised. He then explained that the ghost has been living on the stream for a long time, calling out the name of the people crossing over the bridge. A normal person was not supposed to be able to hear it, and even if one did, it was the best not to show that one did. If some idiot, like me, reacted and responded to the call, she would follow him and haunt around. Apparently, he'd been trying to catch this evil thing, but he still hasn't managed after 6 years. I have moved away from the area a long time ago, but the trauma still comes back on a rainy day. Following story includes graphic description of a suicide scene. Viewer discretion is advised. Back in 2002, I was 15 and was in the last year of middle school. One November evening, I was on my way back home well past 11 after my cram school. It wasn't very cold, but felt grim with frozen drizzle. I didn't see a single person around. I felt a bit cribbed and chose dark but shorter back alleyway rather than the broader and well-lit front way. About halfway in the alley, some black thing fell right in front of me with a tremendous ground-shattering thud, followed by a loud sound of pop. With that, something splashed on my clothes and on my face. I knew what it was instinctively and just shut my eyes tight. I could not even breathe, let alone scream. I just prayed somebody could quickly come and take me away. But I could not help but noticing gurgling noise. Still alive? I thought, and opened my eyes to check on, which I shouldn't have done. Blood-soaked long hair was the only thing that showed the fallen person was a woman. Her head crushed to half, her whole body was mangled in impossible angles, and from her mouth spurted and poured out blood with that gurgling noise. I screamed and screamed. I wished I'd have rather fainted, but only after a couple of security guards rushed up and held me could I finally pass out. When I woke up, I was in my room. All I could think about was how I was going to live on with this memory of what I saw. For a time, schoolmates and neighbors around me talked about the woman who committed suicide, but I kept silent. I didn't want to think about it at all, let alone talk about it. I suffered insomnia and sleep paralysis, but I just took them as natural consequence of a traumatic event. About a month later, and it was a few days before Christmas, I went out to cinema with some friends. Program was silly comedy, and I was enjoying myself immersing into the welcome distraction. Probably 30 minutes into the film, I felt my left shoulder getting wet. I fumbled the shoulder to check, could not feel anything particular, so turned my attention to the screen again. But it felt once again getting wet, this time much clearly as if somebody poured something on my shoulder. I fumbled again, and it was indeed wet. I turned around and saw somebody standing. I could not see who that was in the dark, but a long-fingered white hand, which clearly was that of a woman. "What are you doing?" I protested in a low voice, to which the woman stood up without a response and moved away. I was wearing a dark brown top which made it difficult to see what the liquid was, so I went to the toilet to check. The moment I stood in front of the mirror there, I froze. It was clearly blood. Dark scarlet liquid had soaked my entire left shoulder. Shivering, I took off the top and washed it off. Water ran red, and I could indeed smell the metallic note of blood. What kind of crazy person would do such a thing? I went back to my friends in the screening room and informed some crazy woman spilt blood on me. But they thought I was joking and replied, "Yeah, right, must have been a ghost." It only made me more anxious, but I didn't want to make a fuss and kept quiet. Now, wearing a half-wet top, I felt chills, so turned around to pick up my overcoat and saw somebody, most likely a woman, standing at one corner, looking towards my direction. Why would somebody be staring at me rather than the screen? I felt almost a panic attack, and in the end I excused myself to friends and went straight back home. The whole evening I tried to calm myself down lying on the sofa. Only when Mom called us for dinner, I stood up and went to check on my younger brother, who would be usually glued to his computer to play game. I sat next to him and kept poking him till he finally relented and stood up for dinner. And the moment he turned off the computer screen, I saw the reflection of myself and somebody's head leaning against my shoulder. I was startled and looked around, but of course nobody was there. On top of what happened earlier at the cinema, now I was legit frightened, but neither Mom nor my brother took my teary complaint seriously. I could not sleep that night, but I kept my eyes shut as if to overcome insomnia with my will. After all, my mom and brother were probably right, and it was all but my own paranoia making me sing what wasn't there. But what was this gurgling noise? It sounded familiar, but I told myself it wasn't real, it was just a hallucination. There would be nothing when I opened my eyes. And I did open my eyes. There she was, face half blown, mangled long hair, and blood pouring out from the mouth. Could not see her eyes, but I could tell she was looking at me. I must have fainted, and it was morning when I woke up. Since then, she was around me day and night, at home or outside. I lost 8 kilograms in a matter of a couple of weeks. Fortunately, it was winter vacation, and I even sought a psychiatric consultation. But as if mocking me, the woman appeared even more frequently and in increasingly grotesque positions. What made me finally think it was more than just my psychological issue was that I wasn't the only one seeing her. The woman sometimes appeared even when I was around family and friends, and some of them did see her too. In the end, I even sought a shaman, but peace was short-lived, and the woman returned again. I cried, pleaded, begged, and tried to persuade her, but she seemed only enjoying my suffer, sometimes looking at me with a sneer. Then, a history teacher of mine, who had strong interest in folk religions and shamanism, introduced me to a shaman, citing her to be very powerful. Well, I didn't have many other options anyway. And the shaman, the moment I entered the room, said, "So why did you touch the one who killed herself?" I just bursted into tears. "Does she say that? But I didn't touch her. Please tell her that I didn't." Only later I learned that when I fainted at the scene, I fell over the woman's mangled body. So unfair that she had to have grudge on me for that. But how do you expect a ghost to be rational?
No happy person commits suicide. She too killed herself with her heart full of so much resentment and grudge, and now is determined to take you over,
Shaman said. After she performed the cleansing ritual twice on me, I could finally be freed from the ghost. Now I'm almost back to normal life, but the whole experience left my heart even more sensitive than it already was. I think life can be sometimes spectacularly unfair. Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I already made an episode about more sentimental encounters with ghosts and bad people meeting paranormal justice. If you missed them, the links are in the description. So I thought it was time to make an episode about paranormal encounters that were plain uncalled for. Paranormal is a reflection of our real life, so it is only natural that there are just as diverse kinds of ghosts as there people are, I suppose. If you liked my work, please give it a like and a comment, and do consider subscribing to my channel to follow more weird and wonderful stories fresh from Korea. I'm pretty confident I am one of the first that brings these stories to the wider world. I'll see you next Sunday again. Until then, stay safe and take care.